Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make a very simple animation, a GIF file. And so that's kind of building on everything that we've done before, although it's not going to include a lot of the things like cropping and adding transparencies or anything. We're going to stay real simple on this so you get a feel for the nature of the GIF. So the first thing I want to do is I want to open my first file. I'm going to go with this. This is a scanning electron microscope image of a body feather from a bird. And so it looks a little blurry, kind of hard to see. This isn't the best image ever, but it's going to work pretty well for what I want. And so this is going to be one of the frames. I'm going to set something up where it takes these images and it basically shows us effectively zooming in on the bird feather. Okay, so this is the one where we're zoomed all the way in. This is very, very zoomed in. This is 3,000 times magnification. And this black bar down here is 30 microns, which means that the width of this screen is probably about 1/3 the thickness of a human hair. And so, but that's not terribly important. What is important is us going up to File, Open as Layers. And so now I could open these guys one at a time and it will open them as a new layer like we've played with before. But luckily, I can select the top one there, hold Shift, and select the bottom, and it selects everything in between. Then I click Open, and it opens them for me. Yay! And so back over here on the layers, I can only see the top one for now, but I can make it go invisible, make that one go invisible, and keep zooming in. And so this is basically what I want it to look like. Is starting out here, it's just going to show each of those images and kind of zoom in. Now the important thing to remember, the first thing that I want to deal with is the fact that they're in the reverse order of what I want. In fact, we can actually see that now. We can test this out at any given time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to Filters, a new tab we haven't played with before, and I'm going to go down to Animation. This is where most of the GIF stuff happens. And I can do Playback, and I can do this at any point pretty much during making the GIF. I'm going to do Play. That's pretty cool. So it's zooming out instead of in, which is one downside, and it's happening kind of quick. So I'm going to need to reorder these. Normally what I'll do is I'll drag this guy to the bottom and then this guy second closest to the bottom and so forth. But the software that I'm currently using to capture this blocks me from being able to do that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll join back with you in just a moment after I've reordered them the way that I want. And we're back. Okay, so I've reordered them, and let's double check how that looks now. I'm going to go back up to the Filters tab, to Animation, where we can control a lot of stuff with our animations, and I'm going to click Play. That's pretty good. Now it's going the way that I want it to, where it's zooming in, but that's still happening way too fast. Way, way, way too fast. So the way that I can control this easily is I go in and I double click on my layer so I can change the name. I put a space, a parentheses, and let's go with 1000 ms, end parentheses. That is 1000 milliseconds, or as it's also known, 1 second. And I'm actually going to copy that if I can. Yay, it worked. And I'm going to add that to each of these. Basically, this is the way that you can go in and you can select, oops, layer attributes. Fine, layer name. Don't know why that one wanted me to alter it in a box, but that's fine. So you do that, hit enter, and it'll save that. I didn't hit enter on the others. Oops. And make certain that the name changes there, and you're in good shape. Okay, so now let's check our filters again. Animation, playback. That should change it from the default, which is 100 milliseconds, to what I've entered in now, which is 1000 milliseconds, which is 10 times longer. There we go. That's a lot more useful. People can actually see what's going on that. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, well, that's actually more or less perfect for what I want. Now I'm going to do one final thing in here, and this one's kind of weird. If you've got a really simple animation, you don't really have to bother with it that much. But if you go back to Filters, Animation, and select Optimize for GIF. Basically what that does is it goes and deletes bits and pieces of images. Like on this guy you can see there's a bit of a checkerboard pattern along the bottom. They notice that with each of these, they have the measurement, and so what it's actually done is it's made it where now not every layer has that information. It basically saves on space. So it's really good to use if you've got a bigger animation or you're worried about space. So let's go back to filters. Let's make certain that that hasn't adjusted anything horribly, but usually it does all right. Seems fine to me. So that looks good. So finally I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to do bird feather dot GIF. And a GIF is one of the file formats that can handle an animation. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and save that. It's going to ask me a number of things. First off, GIF plugin can only handle layers as animations. So basically it's giving me two options. It says, hey, you've got a bunch of layers here. What do you want me to do with them? Do you want me to compress them all where they're just one image, which defeats the purpose of everything that we've been doing, but it's similar to the other stuff that we did before if we had left multiple layers instead of merging them down. I do not want that. I want this as an animation, so I'm going to select Save as Animation, then click Export. GIF comment, by default it'll have created with GIMP in there. You can remove it if you want, but I usually just leave it. This is an important option, loop forever. So if you uncheck this, the GIF will play once and stop, but I want it to loop forever. Delay between frames where unspecified. If I didn't put in the 1000 milliseconds in there, I could easily put in 1000 milliseconds here and then say use the delay entered above for all frames. And so if I don't have a time period on it, it will use this, which the default was 100, which you saw earlier. Or I can completely override whatever I've put in there by putting in 1000 or 6000 or whatever and selecting that. I don't really want that though. And then frame disposal, that's going to be kind of dependent on what you want to do with it. Frame disposal, I usually just leave it on I don't care, but cumulative basically has it where with each layer it sets it on top of the last one, although one frame per layer makes it where it puts the frame up, then removes it and puts the new one up. Usually, especially if you've used the optimize for GIF, you want to leave it on cumulative layers, or I don't care usually works fine. So we're going to save that. We should be in good shape. I'm going to bring that guy back up. Oops, where did that guy go? Okay, now that we've got it saved, let's just double check that everything is in good order on it. So I've got it brought up here. I accidentally saved it in a different folder, but that's fine. I'm going to bring that up. And it seems to be working pretty well. Let's see, bring that middle here. And so I can always go back in, and when I save it, I could have selected the use the delay list above for all frames and changed the number to whatever I wanted. I could have sped this up by 2 by changing it just to 500 instead of having 1000 in there, or I could have slowed it down by 2 by putting in 2000 instead of 1000. So it's an easy way to adjust it. But that gives you an idea of how you can use the layers to actually make an animation here in GIMP. So hopefully that's useful for you.